afternoon, good evening, all. It's Bear here. And I'd like to welcome you to my YouTube channel, A Box with No Lid. A channel that I'm trying to create not just to bring awareness to the complexities around trauma and adoption trauma, but I really want to get into the understanding, sometimes as hard as they are to hear, of what we need to actually truly heal. Now, I just wanted to do a quick video. This is another one in the adoption series. But I want to do a quick video on the minefield for an adoptee of finding and the need to find biological family. As I said in the previous video, when we're trying to heal adoption trauma, we need a bunch of answers from our biological family. Our body needs certain things. We need the vocal tone. We need to hear our mother's voice, our father's voice. We need to hear some of the voices that were around us when we were in the womb of our mother, to access parts of that void, that well of despair of why our mother never came and picked us up and took us home, which is what we're trying to heal. We're trying to make sense of why the hell were we not good enough for our mom and family to want us. Regardless of how we've connected to our adoptive family, this is no offense to that side whatsoever. This is an infant and young child's understanding. This has nothing to do with how an adult's made sense of it in all our dissociative structures that we are and that we do. All the justifications and rationalizations you cannot explain to a 6-month-old. I'm talking about our young child self, which sits in the very core of every facet of every connection, of every decision and everything we are. This is what we're trying to heal. So because we need to have those answers, and a lot of those answers cannot get triggered until we've got this face-to-face with our mom or dad or brothers, sisters, siblings, whatever. It needs to be a close biological family member. So, do we need to? I spent years trying to find my biological family. I can't. Mine, because the military's involved around mine. I'm a Vietnam era baby. My father was a veteran in the war. My mother was a volunteer nurse. I was conceived on R&R. It was this whole thing of, I'm almost certain that I was born on a military base. Hence, the level of redaction and the removing of names and dates. I don't have a birth certificate. I have an issued certificate of birth. I don't have an actual birth certificate. I have these obstacles where I can't, but I tried. I got on a plane with very little money in my pocket, trying to find, because I came from America and Canada, trying to find pathways to get answers. I found some, and a lot of hardship around it. But not having found that is also a blessing, because I've also met enough adoptees who have found biological family and the literal shitstorm it creates. It's this, again, adoption is the impossible mess that we're trying to find and navigate, heal what we need to do and what we don't. Finding biological family is an important and necessary thing to do, but it also has such a level of complexity and so much mess attached to it that it is not something that you generally go, yes, go ahead and do it, it's really awesome. It is a freaking mess. When you meet, and I've watched it happen countless times with adoptees when they have a face-to-face, when they come from it, they have the same eyes, the same nose, the same mannerisms, all this recognition of vocal tone, around the structures of polyvagal theory and these key biological components of attachment, which are part of the latch-on belly crawl process that we're trying to heal at the very beginning of our birth, come into play. And that's awesome in the first days and weeks, but that opens up this whole can of accessing the void of despair from not being good enough. And then we try to approach getting the answers we need, and you have this competitiveness of trauma and this competitiveness of justification that turns this whole process into a freaking minefield. So it's not something you can just recommend without being aware that it is a minefield. The mothers of forced removals, the mothers who've relinquished in adoption, have spent years and decades justifying their decisions, justifying whose fault it was, who's at blame. Many times, adoptees are refused connection because their current family, the biological mother's family, have not been told. They don't know that you exist. 9 times out of 10, the father never knew you existed. There's all these layers of secrecies and everything else. You are stepping into a whole nest of bombs and minefields and difficulties and everything else. But to heal, we need those freaking answers. We need to access those parts of us, and we need to know what the hell happened so that we can make sense of it enough to be able to put that shit to rest within us. So do we need to look and find answers? Yes. Do we need to also educate ourselves on the minefield that tracing biological family is? 100% yes. I really wish more adoptee groups would come together and focus on the honest truth of stuff and create the resources around advising adoptees on all the pitfalls associated. But the thing with anything you do with trauma, whenever you have groups coming together through the similarities of the same traumatic experiences, you get the camps, the defensive camps within it of coping structures and competitiveness of trauma. Who suffered more? Who hasn't? Who has what belief system and who doesn't? Hence the fog and everything around the fog defines all the different camps you have with adoptee groups. So you'll find these adoptee groups, these little groups of 10, 15 or 20 people of a similar competitive belief system around what they've experienced. But every time you start to step into larger forums, and I'm part of some adoptee forums that are several 100,000 members when you're looking at the internet, and you just watch the minefields unfold, so that the information that is needed around the complexities and depths is lost in amongst all of these opinions. When you look when somebody puts up some information about a search and some results, the comments 1,000 strong of all these opinions, and it gets lost. So do we need to find and search? Yes. Do we need to be mindful of the pitfalls? Yes. One of the things I want to try to do with this channel on the adoptee side is make you aware of some of the pitfalls and the complexities. And let me know in your comments or in an email. I can answer some more questions in more detail, specifically to your circumstance, and maybe point you in some of the directions. But you also need to be mindful of the complexities around the process of searching. So many documents are altered, are missing, or have been redacted or destroyed. There are so many things. People just go, we'll do DNA searches. I get that all the time. I'm a Vietnam era baby. Agent Orange, dioxins, alters the results of baseline genetic testing. So Ancestry and all those levels of genetic testings are useless for me, because of how dioxins alter and create false positives and false negatives. Yes, I can do direct. Like if I found my biological mother and we did a maternal test, yes, there would be there because the two sides are there. But when you do these broad open similarity searches, like Ancestry and the similar, they don't. So if you come from Vietnam, or you come from a war zone, or you come from areas where there are dioxins, heavy pesticide use, there's all these other things that are at play that you need to be mindful of when you're going into these searches. Because trust me, it's devastating when you think you've found an answer and you put a bunch of resources and effort into pursuing that answer, and it's not. I've been given 3 different names for my biological mother. Until I ended up pushing so hard that the truth came about the level of redactions and the level of bullshit. I held on to the first one for so long and tried to find some answers that I spent what resources I had looking in the wrong goddamn country. And when it came to light how I was shipped here and how I wasn't born in the hospital that my record says I was born in, and the hospital, when I did searches in that hospital, said you were not freaking born here. And all these things fell into place because of kindness of people that went that extra mile in searching to try to help me. It gutted to the point where, you start thinking things that you shouldn't. So be mindful of this because of what's at play. And walk this journey carefully and learn as much as you can about each step before you take it. Like I said, do we as an adoptee, do we need to search for our biological family? I do believe we do. To whatever depth and degree we choose to answer whatever questions we need answered at whatever time we need answered. But also be mindful that you are walking into a shitstorm of competitions, of trauma and responses. Majority of the time, we have to keep it secret from our adoptive family because we're a threat to our relationship to them and so forth and so on. There's all this stuff that takes from what we're trying to do to help ourselves. So again, that sanctuary, taking that time out, what have I answered to help myself, so forth and so forth. We have been given an impossible mess. That is the life we got to build within it. Is what we need to do to what degree we need to answer that mess. I hope this video makes a little sense. As I said, yes, we need to look for it, but we need to educate ourselves on what's involved in our search for families, not just the pretty stuff, the shit that goes with it. Keeping that in mind every step of the way, and keeping that in mind that it's our right to get what we need from those situations and answers that we need. We are the innocent party in all this. So please be mindful, please be gentle, please be respectful of yourself and others. I love you guys' comments and feedback. If you've got direct questions, personal questions, please email me on aboxwithnolid@gmail.com. And I'll see you next time.